Is it recording? You really need to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, it's recording.
Hello.
Hi, so sorry. We are really ridiculous. And by we, I mean me. I'm really dumb at this stuff. The only time I've ever done Zoom is on my stupid cell phone for a stupid mic. So you're gorgeous and I suck. But thank you for being on our podcast. Sorry, it was a painful setup, but here we are.
Well, happy to be the guinea pig today to figure it out. So now you know how to do it moving forward.
Yeah, now we know how to do moving forward. So we know that we only have you for a few minutes, so that's fine. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Lisa. I know that you're a councilwoman. But I like what's your education and your history and stuff?
Well, I'm actually not a councilwoman.
Oh, okay.
But I work for Councilwoman Candy Sedabaca. I am her chief of staff.
She did her own way. I did not.
But notably, I am the first woman of color who made the ballot for mayor. So I did run for mayor and came in third with virtually no money and took on the establishment. And there's actually a documentary called Running with My Girls that talks about me and Candy Sedabaca's run along with some other women of color. It just got finished. It's not out for kind of broader distribution yet. We're still kind of just doing screenings. But basically talking about what is it like for women to run, and particularly women of color to run for public office, especially in this environment, in this city where it's the second most gentrifying city in the nation, and the first gentrifying city for Latinos in the nation. So, we have all of that going on amid a homeless pandemic, racial uprising, and economic recession. So
yeah. Well, what's been the hardest thing? What's been the hardest thing that you have experienced, or that you feel other people have experienced in 2020 as opposed to any other year? Like, what's been like the most challenging thing of 2020 that's really come to fruition?
Well, I mean, I think it's like a perfect storm of the worst kinds of circumstances have all happened in 2020. And what that means is that people who were already behind got way, much further behind. The people who were just holding on are now, at where the people were who were just like, homeless or on the verge of homelessness. Now we're going to see a whole, group of people who are now moving into that end of the spectrum. We see that despite the George Floyd protests over the summer, that there's not been fundamental changes in policing. In fact, the Independent Monitor just came out with a devastating report regarding the Denver Police Department and systemic failures that greatly endangered people that they were supposed to protect and serve. And even with that, City Council gave them raises. So, and approved their budget. So it's almost like, what does it take for us to fundamentally change our city systems when we're basically doing the same thing over and over again? And so that's been really, really frustrating.
No, so when you were running for
mayor,
I'm sorry. So when you were running for mayor in 2019,
you just promoed me to
governor. I know.
She knows more than I did. I called you a councilwoman, so I don't know anything. I'm just here for the ride.
Well, I know a big thing that you were talking about was affordable housing for people, and I know our homeless population is an issue. And so I guess in your position right now, what sort of things are you doing? Are you in a position where you guys are addressing those sorts of things, or I guess
every day?
Yeah,
every day. So probably the homelessness crisis is the number one issue that we're presented with. And I think the challenging thing is is we don't have the tools that the mayor's office does. So if the mayor decided actually that we would, um, have a much more humane approach to people, then we would.
Mhm.
And this mayor has made very intentional steps and policies to try to disappear unhoused people. And that has been his policy in the 9 years that he's been in office. And part of that has to do with he's been very beholden to developer interests. Like, we didn't become the second most gentrifying city in the nation by accident. And so, you have to make decisions about who you're going to, whose voices you're going to preference. And are you going to preference the people who have the least amount of power, the least amount of political power, the least amount of money? Or are you going to privilege the ones who have all of that? And this mayor has chosen to listen to the business lobby and the Downtown Denver Partnership, who basically wrote the camping ban and gave it to this mayor to then collude with city council to pass it. And we've been living with this ever since. I live in Council District 9. I've been born and raised in Denver. And Council District 9 is the epicenter of homelessness. But we've also always had homelessness from the time I was little and even beyond, but this is the worst it's ever been. And part of it is when the wealth gap expands so rapidly that we have people, around 60% of people who are homeless have jobs. So these are people who are working but can't afford to live in our city, but they're also not the ones the mayor is listening to. And these are who the policies are designed around. So imagine if we actually had a mayor and city leadership that actually listened to the ones who were most impacted. And when you serve the ones who are most impacted, then you serve everybody, because you are helping the most vulnerable. And the most vulnerable, and so they are not in the streets, and people are so mad at them for the trash and all of that. But if you don't give people trash cans, and it's illegal to throw their stuff in private trash cans, because we have a privatized trash system, we don't have dumpsters anymore. You assist everybody, right? It helps the whole ecosystem, right? When you provide affordable rents for people, that helps everybody. That helps to keep workers in our city. But that's not what the priorities are. So, people made their choice. They reelected him. And now they're dealing with the consequences. He promised them we could do better, and he hasn't done better. We're doing worse.
Right. Now, when you said that you were taking on the establishment, is that kind of what you were referencing? Is not giving a voice to people who didn't have the money because they didn't have money or power, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
my camera's right here.
That's okay. I can see all of you in front of me.
Where's good at this?
I'm the best one, so no one ever. Christina, I'm called a councilwoman. I did my research. I can't talk. So
no, that's fine. So really, this is a process of building power. And so when Candy and I decided to run together, first of all, neither of us wanted to run. We're like, we don't want to do it. And but we were unable to find people to run. She was running against Elvis Brooks, who was a buddy of Hancock's, and we didn't know it at the time. And in fact, it didn't take him long to basically flip to the other side once he was elected. So she ran against him after we saw that he was not doing anything to stop the rampant displacement in our neighborhoods. I mean, for people to think that gentrification is inevitable, it's not. And I would encourage people to read this book called How to Kill a City. It's a very easy read, but basically it talks about all of these stages that we go through that really is a result of politicians and private interest developers, special interest folks getting together, creating policy that puts us on this trajectory that then creates that perfect storm of gentrification. Because, neighborhoods change, people are going to move in and out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people are displaced. People can learn to live together and create affordable housing and economic viability without there being winners and losers. And right now that's a system that we're in. And so we're left competing for the scraps. But when we build power together, that means that people like me and Candy, who never ran for public office before, that you ask yourself kind of 3 questions. And one is, and this is part of the strategy of organizers is, can you win? And, everyone wants to win, but, not everybody who runs wins. So even if you can't win, or it's going to be really tough, the second question you ask is, can you build power? And I knew we could build power. And the third question is, can we help improve the lives of the people that we're committed to? So the second and third seemed achievable, even if the first felt like really out of reach. And it's true, like you have to run a bunch of people for you to get one in. And that was the case with Candy. That was the case with AOC. I think with, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there were like 60 women who ran in the group that supported her. And she was the one who got in. So we have to recognize that, but none of that effort was wasted for all of those other women, right? They learned how to run races. They activated their communities. They redefined debate. Like my big thing was I wanted to debate Michael Hancock. And I was, having virtually no money. I was on the stage debating Michael Hancock as being one of the top 3 candidates in the race. That came from building power in the community. That came from me debating him on Channel 9 News with tens of thousands of people watching. I was able to call out his record for not protecting the most vulnerable, for being a Black man, but not protecting the Black community and the rate of displacement. And so, that broadened, this whole other stage and opened up a whole other world of a platform that I didn't have before.
What is it like running? Like, what is it like to have a position in government? Is it fun and exciting? I'm sure it drives you crazy sometimes. Like, does it you want certain policies to be implemented and then other people don't? Like, how does that work?
So when we were previewing our film, Running with My Girls, because it's Rebecca Henderson, another woman of color, is a filmmaker, followed us through our race. And that was basically the question you ask, is what her film is about. Like, what is this like? And what I would say is, when we were watching it, there was a lot we didn't remember. And there was a lot we didn't remember because, one, there was a lot going on. Like, you had to prepare all the time. You had to be on all the time. You had to debate. You had to go, shake hands, blah, blah, blah. This was pre-COVID. And then, remember when we used to shake hands and be in big crowds? And,
not face masks, yeah.
But so it was exhausting. It was at times just, I just was like, I can't believe I have to do this one more time. You become a commodity. Everyone feels like they can tell you about yourself and what you need to do, and everyone gives you advice. But that aside, there were also parts in which I was really energized when I was out with the community. When I would be out with little girls who would say, I know I can be mayor too, and when I would have young people be able to see that this is possible, and and it wasn't impossible. Like, this isn't the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It isn't. Um, I've been through being raised poor in the projects, being a single parent, being homeless when I was a high school senior for part of my high school year, being a survivor of domestic violence when I was 17 years old to 21, I think my first year in college. Those were all harder. And so when you have faced adverse circumstances, and when you have been told that you, by society, by abusive people, that you don't have a voice, that you are nothing, and then you find that people really want to hear what you have to say, I'm like, I can deal with the inconveniences that go along with running, because what's worse is not being heard, and not being seen, and being devalued. And so that it was not running for office sucks, but but
Honestly.
but it's got its wonderful moments, like Candy getting elected. That was amazing.
Like, to have all that hard work pay off, and then to finally, get that seat and to get that voice. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's really important that you run with a cohort. That you don't do this alone. And whatever it is, whatever race you run, whether it's a political race, or you've got a goal and you see, your end game, don't do it alone. Don't ever do it alone. And so we were able to pick each other up when we were feeling down. When Candy was going for the runoff, and she had essentially made it through, but she had to go through another, I think, 3 weeks of running hard. And she was just exhausted and she didn't want to do it. And I just said, you know what? This isn't about your opponent anymore. This is about you and the community, period. Doesn't matter what he does. And so we kind of picked her up literally and pushed her over and the finish line, and she found the win that she needed to go the last 3 weeks. And she made history as the first queer Latina. I think she was the youngest as well on city council ever elected. So
Beautiful.
That's really impressive. Does she feel like she had to work harder than, like, let's say like Michael Hancock, or maybe a white male in a position of power? Like, how, like, politically, does she feel like she had to work harder in order to make herself known, or her platform?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was exhausted in every way by the end of her race, but and it wasn't just a white man. She was running against a Black man. But the difference with Albus, unlike many Black men in society, is Albus had the establishment behind him. He had the power base behind him. He had the money behind him. He had the developers and the special interests behind him. And so, regardless, if you're running up against a candidate, just like I ran up against a candidate who had all of those things too. And so the fact that I got, as many votes as I did, with very little money, I think I had 32,000 votes, and Hancock didn't make 50%, like the incumbent who didn't make 50%, because you have to make 50% plus one. So normally the incumbent wins outright because they have all of that infrastructure. So the fact that he didn't win that says that we did enough damage to him that he had to run in a runoff, that he had to defend his record. That would not have happened if me and others hadn't run against him. Thank God he's term limited. I know we haven't heard the last from Albus, but then in the next race, this is where I think people like you all come in. There were a whole lot of people who didn't pay attention to the races. They didn't know who was running. When I was knocking on doors, there were a lot of people who didn't even know who our mayor was. And so why change it? And so normally when people vote in a situation like that, they just go with a name that is remotely familiar.
Right.
So now we have, and if people didn't know him before, they know him from going to Mississippi and breaking his own COVID order.
There was
So-
no Google information on that at all, by the way.
Popcorn the kettle black.
right.
There were a lot of people that felt very strongly that Michael Hancock should lose his position right then and there. It's because it's
Right, but there's nothing they could do. They voted him in. And so
Yeah.
it's like, unless you're going to recall him, which no one's going to do in a pandemic. But, he was supposed to be vying for a position in the Biden administration, but that's probably gone now. So we're stuck with him for another 2.5 years. But what that all just means, though, is that like podcasts like yours, and that's why I do interviews and Candy does interviews, and it doesn't matter how big or how small, our message is the same. Pay attention to politics. Everything in politics is everything. It's the air we breathe, it's the water we drink, it's how your transportation system, it's everything is political. And so we just have to really recognize that you do have a voice, you do matter. The next race is going to start in about a year, even though technically positions are not up until I think 2024. So, 2.5 years, people are going to start running in the next year. And here's what's something else that's really important for your folks to know. We went through a finance reform, which means that the money that was thrown at me in the race, it can't happen again, because the city can match the money now. The voters voted for matching funds to even the playing field for grassroots people to run for office.
interesting.
So, and that money starts accumulating as soon as you declare. So you'll start seeing probably in the next year, people start declaring, I'm running for city council, I'm running for mayor, and start racking that up. Now you have to get a certain number of, I'm going to say sponsors, but it's not donors, for that to start. But basically that means anybody can run then, right? We don't have to be hindered by someone who already is going to start with $1 million in the bank.
Right.
So stay attuned, be plugged in, know some of the issues, and really also just winding up here, you are the experts in your lives and in your communities. And so that's where you speak from. And you don't worry about, oh, I'm not a policy expert on this or in this area. And that's a great thing about running with someone like the women of color who we ran together. Candy is an expert in zoning issues, and she's an expert in zoning issues because she had to defend her grandma's house that was being taken away from her by the expansion of the highway. So there's something that ignites you, that sets your heart on fire. And then you become an expert in that. For me, it was justice reform after the police assaulted my son when he was 15 years old. And I've been doing that work ever since, for the past 15 years. And so, but through that lens, then you learn all of these other policies that are connected: gentrification, criminalization, education reform via charter schools, school to prison pipeline. All of those things align. And then you start becoming experts in these other areas too. So, just kind of figure out what your passion is, and then view kind of your trajectory through that.
Really quickly, Lisa, what do you think is going to be, obviously it's been a very difficult year. How long would you say it's going to take us to recover from COVID? Like, I'm not even talking like on a global scale. I'm just talking like on a national scale. Like I'm sure we're talking years.
We are. Well, just okay. So first, from the city level, it's going to take us 2 to 3 years at minimum to just start kind of our economic trajectory. For rich people, they're already there, right? The wealth gap has actually gotten wider since this pandemic, right? So, and I think this is my now third recession I've gone through. And with that, so, and just speaking generally for communities of color, a lot of our wealth was tied up in our homes. And so in the last recession, we lost a lot of our generational wealth in our homes. And so to land speculators or selling our homes because we needed the money in the last recession. So that means in this next recession, a lot of us don't have homes. Like I'm lucky to still have my home, but a lot of people who lost their homes in the last recession now don't have it as a cushion in this recession. And then for you all's generation, because my daughter is you all's generation, that it's the wealth gap is even farther, because the cost of living is higher. I remember being a single parent and I had my own place and I could afford my own place even as a single parent. Now, a lot of folks in my daughter's generation are still living with their parents or living with a bunch of roommates, right? And my daughter's living with me.
Luckily, we're
right?
not. None of that applies to any of us. None of that.
Okay.
This is a studio apartment you see down here, Lisa. We are trying to get podcast dollars. Okay, if we don't win, it comes this, and we're taking you with us. Okay, when we get a mansion, you are more than welcome to swim in that pool. All right, everybody's welcome.
So you know what I'm talking about, right?
We'll have mimosas and ding dongs and everything. All right, we'll just sugar that stuff up.
But that's crazy in terms of, it's like the American dream was always mythologized, but the gap of generations is huge now. And I think that, but I don't think that has to be inevitable. And so maybe ending on a positive note, what I am actually really excited by is you all's generation, because you're not wedded to the politics of the past. You're not wedded to the old timer politicians who make and cut these deals. You don't even know who the hell they are. So even better. And you think outside of the box. And you're on social media like you are now. These are all things that are going to change the trajectory. And now you've also experienced your own recession, and you know what that feels like. And and so I think the empathy gap is going to be greater than for like my generation that went through kind of like the consumer generation, right? That's how we kind of proved our worth, was buying stuff, and then things crashed. And then the other thing y'all have going for you, I think, is a caring for the environment in a way that our generation didn't, because we were the consumer generation. But to have an awareness that that we are at a tipping point in our world, and that we are connected in a way that we've never been connected before globally because of social media. To me, that gives me hope in what you all are going to be able to do. And so I would just say, get ready for 2024, kick the bums out of office who haven't been serving you well.
And actually funny. No, I'm just kidding. Mine is on the ballot next to Kanye's again.
Yeah, and look at all races, right? And even if you're not running yourself, volunteer on a campaign, because that's also such a great community building endeavor and empowering. So
that would be such a cool experience, though, to be on a campaign. Oh, I'll be your campaign manager, Lisa. I get my ish together. You're gonna have to. I'll have to learn Zoom. I will learn Zoom for you.
This is a terrible interview for that.
Well, by the time, the next races are ready to go, we'll be hopefully in the clear and be able to see each other in person, because one of the best things about running were the volunteers. I love the volunteers and the parties and the pizza parties and the dance offs and all of that stuff. So just get ready.
I want to dance to Beyonce in the same room with you, Lisa, and we'll have like a big boardroom with our podcast so that we don't have to worry about Zoom meetings. Because I am just not technically savvy. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. If you want to do a Zoom class or a Zoom 101, I would love to learn more, Lisa.
Well, I think this was it. I think this was your so I give you, you passed. It all is well that ends well.
Well,
So
Christina is running for office, and I'm going to be the VP because she knows how to handle it better than I do.
well, and you didn't introduce me to your.
I know, this is Dick Black.
Hello. How you doing? How goes it?
Well, it's been fun and nice to meet you.
He does comedy
Just
too.
stand-up comedy,
Yeah. In Denver.
Would love to see it, and I'm sure I'll be seeing more of you all. And thank you for having me on. And just keep following us, and feel free to tag me, and I'll do the same for you all. And there's lots to do in this city, so I'm glad we're working together, even though it's virtually.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well,
Appreciate
thank you,
you.
Lisa, so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Definitely. Have a great rest of your evening.
And good luck with the documentary.
Okay, thank you.
One plug before you go. Documentary.
One more. What is
Running with my girls.
Running with my girls? Yes.
Yes. Running with my girls. Check it out. I'd love to hear what y'all think about. I think you'll just see the trailer right now.
Uh-huh.
Check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I
We'll
want to
give
see
it a
the
look,
trailer.
see.
Okay. All right. Talk to y'all
Thank you
later.
so much, Lisa. Have a good night.
Happy holidays.
You too. Bye.
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 Wait. Is it still recording? How
Yeah.
do we stop the recording? Just push stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Stop.
Not
Stop.
pause, push stop.
Well, you're gonna get
This one is.
No. No.
That's it.
Oh my God.
Just close it.
There's a button
Just
right
shut the
here.
computer off.
No, I don't want
Let's-
the square button. The square.
Take it away, Dick.
Yeah, please. Take it away.